Okay, welcome everyone to today's stream. Just to get some of the formalities out of the way. First things first, if at any point you find this stream useful, go ahead and like and subscribe. That's how the channel grows. I'd greatly appreciate it. I've been having a lot of fun telling stories and talking about ChatGPT. As generative AIs develop and grow, I'm going to be moving on to different models, different use cases, stuff like that. For now, I think it's a wonderful storyteller, and I'm really having fun with that. So that's what we're going to stick with. Except for today, there's been a lot of conversation about banning the ChatGPT site on school networks and attempting to prevent students from using generative AIs to assist them with their studies. And today I would like to discuss that topic. I've actually got myself a little bit of an outline and an idea of how I would like this stream to go. It's not going to be quite as informal and off the cuff as normal streams are. So let's get ourselves into it and talk about use cases for generative AIs in education and why I think that trying to stop their use now is going to be a huge detriment to students in general. So the first thing I'd like to talk about, because I assume that what I have to say will fall mostly on deaf ears. So we're going to start with at least something that I think we can change, which is the inability of AI detectors to accurately identify AI generated content over human generated content, and why, at the very least, we need to avoid using programs like this because they're going to give false positives, they're going to give false negatives, and you're just not going to be able to, with any certainty, guarantee that the student that you're attempting to punish or action against is really using an AI program to help them write their work. So this is OpenAI's AI text classifier. Right? This is what came out specifically to identify work written by ChatGPT, which is currently probably the most advanced large language model available. Definitely the best chatbot that we have access to that could help a student write their work. So let's take a look at how good this AI text identifier, text detector is at identifying something that's written by ChatGPT. So we're just going to do a really simple prompt here. Write me a 5-paragraph essay analyzing the character Huckleberry Finn from the book The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn. Super simple prompt, right? This is absolutely an assignment you would get in a 9th grade English class. Super quick essay, analyzing a character. Maybe you would have some more specifics about what traits of the character you're analyzing. But just a character analysis, absolutely something you would get. Also, I don't even have to spell, which is wonderful, and I love it. The character Huckleberry Finn from the novel The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn is one of the most recognizable figures in American literature. Throughout the book, Huck experiences a wide range of emotions and obstacles, making him a complex and dynamic character. He is both a product of his environment and a unique individual, and his experiences on the Mississippi River shape him into a mature and thoughtful young man. One of the most prominent traits of Huck Finn is his independence. He is a restless spirit who is not content to follow the norms of society and instead seeks out his own path. This is evident in his decision to run away from his abusive father and in his willingness to help Jim escape slavery, despite the social and legal consequences that may ensue. This independence is what sets Huck apart from the other characters in the novel, and is also what makes him such a relatable and memorable character. Another important aspect of Huck's character is his moral compass. Throughout the novel, Huck is faced with a number of ethical dilemmas, and he struggles with what is right and wrong. For example, he is torn between his desire to help Jim escape slavery and his fear of the consequences of aiding a runaway slave. Throughout these struggles, Huck develops a strong sense of morality that is based on his own experiences and understanding of the world rather than on the strictures of society. Huck's experiences on the Mississippi River also play a significant role in shaping his character. He encounters a wide range of people, from con artists to kind-hearted individuals, and these experiences help him to form his opinions about the world. The river also provides Huck with a sense of freedom and adventure that he could not find anywhere else, and this contributes to his growing sense of self-reliance and independence. In conclusion, the character of Huckleberry Finn is a complex and dynamic figure who represents the struggle between societal norms and individual freedom. His independence, moral compass, and experience on the Mississippi River all contribute to his growth and maturation, making him one of the most memorable and reliable characters in American literature. The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn is not just a great American novel, it is a timeless tale of coming of age, adventure, and the search for truth and freedom. Now, this is a very, very standard 5-paragraph essay. We have a lot of repetition in here, which a student absolutely would do to try and fill out, right, the requirements, trying to hit those paragraph requirements. And it's part of the structure that we teach, right? This opening three paragraphs of different ideas or concepts, things to back up what we're writing in our opening, and then a conclusion. And that conclusion is always going to be reiterating what we've said in our previous 3 paragraphs, and our opener is always going to have some allusion towards what those 3 paragraphs are going to be talking about. So there's tons of repetition in this. This is a very classic 5-paragraph essay. I would absolutely turn this in, and I would expect to get a C or a B on it. Right? As far as content is concerned, there's not a lot of deep description in there. Right? Everything is very surface level. But I would have turned this paper in when I was in high school, no problem. So let's take a look at how the AI filter thinks of this paper, the AI detector, right? Extremely basic, right? Single sentence prompt. We basically took what our teacher told us, threw it into the ChatGPT, generated a prompt, or generated an essay, and now we're going to submit it. The classifier considers the text to be unclear if it is AI generated. We put nothing special into this prompt, right? We didn't ask it to write it in a specific style. We didn't provide it samples of our writing so that it could learn our style, so that we could then have it write in our style specifically. We didn't take a look at any of the paragraphs and try and get anything better out of it. We didn't do any of that. All we did was put it in there, right? We took our assignment straight from our teacher, bam, put it in ChatGPT, and it spit out what is an extremely average 5-paragraph essay. And I say that not because I want to discourage people from thinking it's acceptable to use in education. I say it because we need to recognize the power of ChatGPT and similar generative AIs and the inability of a detector to ever identify with any sort of reason or with any sort of consistency whether or not something was generated by AI. And that's because this program, ChatGPT, is specifically designed to mimic average human speech. And so the closer and closer it gets to its goal, the better and better it gets at emulating a human writer. the more and more impossible it becomes to identify the difference between an AI writer and a human writer. And so trying to grade or punish or action any student who uses an AI to assist them in their schoolwork is absolutely ridiculous, because you can't do it. And you're going to end up getting so many false positives and so many false negatives that it's a completely unacceptable way to go about it. Right? You're never going to get it right. There's no point in trying. So, and this is, I mean, this is super simple. You could have taken tons of time. We could have spent an hour talking to the AI about the book, right? Feeding it our own ideas about what we think of the character of Huck Finn, and then have it write based on those ideas, and it would have come back as, this is absolutely not AI generated. And the whole thing would have been AI generated. So we need to start changing the way we view our education, because it's no longer going to be about the technical aspects, right? Where the commas go, where the periods go, how do we structure sentences, how do we format, how do we, all of these other things. That is no longer important to us, because this AI is never going anywhere. From now on, forever, for the rest of human history, all you have to do is have an idea of what you want to have said, and then it can be generated for you. You don't have to type it. This right here, this one sentence, is enough to get this 5-paragraph essay and get across absolutely what I would want to get across. If I add 2 or 3 more sentences, then I'm getting across even more specifically what I'm trying to get across. So it is no longer about all of this formatting, right? We want to standardize things. We want to communicate, memos at work, scholarly papers, all of these things. We want to have standardized formats for them, because we want them to be readable. We want them to be understandable to anyone, no matter where they are, right? They understand what the format is, so it's easier to get through. Well, this solves that problem. This is always going to format it in that standard way, because that's how it was trained. And now we can step away from the rigor of attempting to maintain this formatting, of attempting to try and squish the conflux of thoughts in our brains into this standardization. Instead, we pour this conflux of thoughts into ChatGPT or a similar generative AI and say, okay, now make it make sense to other people. And then we have that ability. So it's going to be much more about content. It's going to be much more about the uniqueness of the ideas that you're putting forward. It's going to be about creativity. It's not about adhering to structure anymore, because that doesn't matter. So I implore you, at the very least, if you're going to ban the use of ChatGPT on your school networks, at a minimum, don't use text classifiers to try and identify students who quote-unquote cheated by using an AI assistant, because you can't do it. They're not good. This one was made by OpenAI. The people who made ChatGPT cannot make a classifier sophisticated enough to identify their own AI's work. So using a classifier to identify cheating will not work. So I implore you not to do that, at the very least. But from now on, I'd like to move forward talking about why you simply shouldn't be limiting access to the AI assistant. So the first thing here is ChatGPT is not the only AI assistant out there. Right? OpenAI has been generating AI chatbots and large language models for years. And access to, for example, GPT-3 or other large language models developed by other companies, it's all still out there. So if you block access specifically to ChatGPT on your network, There are literally hundreds of other generative AIs that run off of the GPT-3 model and other similar models that run through tons of different applications and websites. It's all over the internet. As soon as something like this gets put out there, you can't get it back in the box, right? It's out. The cat's out of the bag. It's not going back in. And it's being iterated on. And open source versions of it are being created. And the API for it is being called from 1,000 different places. And over and over and over again, people are recreating and changing and linking to. It's a huge web. You're never going to be able to stop the ability of your students to access at least something similar. So we might as well be giving them access to the best one, right? Factually speaking, ChatGPT is the best chatbot. Structurally speaking, its ability to sound human, its ability to write in the human standardized ways, it's the best. You're going to be getting better quality work out of it. And so stopping students from being able to access this one specifically is going to drive them to use much less regulated and much less powerful AIs. And so you're just hindering their ability to learn how to work with an AI assistant, and you're hindering the work output. And that's going to be a very, very bad thing. And you can't stop it from happening by blocking ChatGPT. You would have to be able to identify and find every single instance of a web page that in any way calls to an API that is connected to a large language model. And that's virtually impossible. And even as you did it, more would spring up. So that's the first reason, right? I want to stay away from things like, oh, well, it's cheating, or how are they supposed to learn, or any of those standard rebuttals to using ChatGPT, at least at the start of this. And I'd like to look at a little more obscure reasoning as to why trying to block ChatGPT is really just pointless. It's a futile act. Whether you believe it's right or wrong to use an AI assistant to assist with your work, let's take a look at the reasons why you can't stop a person from doing so. So the next thing that I would like to talk a little bit about is the fact that you can't stop a student from using an AI assistant at home, right? We've already proven that you're not going to be able to detect it. It took me literally 5 seconds to get it to write something where it said it was at least unclear if it was AI generated or not. And if that isn't a good enough bar, then you're going to end up scooping up a ton of students who did write their work themselves. And you're going to be actioning those students for doing nothing wrong, which is just going to, if they're going to do the time, they're going to do the crime, right? So if you action a student who wasn't using the AI assistant and they get a 0 on their paper or have to redo their paper, then they're just going to start using the AI assistant because they might as well. You already actioned them for that offense. So you can't stop them from using it at home because you're not going to be able to detect it. And so if you stop them from using it on the school network, then the only people you're really stopping from using this technology to assist them in their schoolwork are students who are too poor to have access to a device or the internet at home. And so you are going to divide very strictly on class lines the ability of some students to ultimately improve their ability to learn by using an AI assistant. We're going to talk more about how an AI assistant is going to help you learn in the future of this video. But for right now, just know that if the only place you can stop a student from using the AI assistant is in school, then the only students you stop are the ones who can only use the AI assistant at school or on school hardware. If you send home one-to-one devices that also have blocks on them that don't allow access to ChatGPT. And that is absolutely something we can't do, because you're holding back students who are already at a disadvantage. Because AI is going to be there in the future, right? This is as bad as AI is ever going to be. It is only going to get better. It is only going to become more integrated into our daily and work lives. And students who don't learn how to use it, don't learn how to interface with it, are going to be at a huge disadvantage when they start entering the workforce. And so you're going to take already disadvantaged students and put them years behind their peers because of their lack of access to something that is going to be a part of their lives after school. Without doubt, in 2 months, ChatGPT has gotten 100 million users. That's a third of the population of the United States in 2 months have started to use ChatGPT. Everybody I talk to uses it every single day at work. So it has to be a skill that students are starting to learn now. Now, moving forward from you can't stop it, so you might as well let it happen, let's talk about some specific concerns of the AI. One of the more valid concerns I feel are concerns about privacy and the content that the AI can generate, and children having access to that. So first, let's talk about privacy. If you have a person who has current access to the internet and they are not taking very specific steps to ensure the obfuscation of their activities online, then having access to ChatGPT is not going to change how much their privacy is being invaded, right? If you go on Google and you search for things, then there is already a company out there that is tracking your online activity, that is identifying you based on your interests, based on what you're searching, based on what you're trying to do online. Right? All of this stuff is already happening, and ChatGPT is not magically going to do that more than other companies. So as far as privacy concerns are concerned, if you are taking steps to not use any Google products, to not have a Facebook account, to not interact in any way with the internet in a manner that would allow you to be tracked, or that would allow your privacy to be infringed upon, then absolutely you should not use ChatGPT. Because this is one of those ways in which that privacy will be taken away. But most people aren't privacy conscious in that way. You know, if you watch YouTube videos, you're already being tracked online. If you Google anything, if you have a Facebook page, if you're on Twitter, if you do TikToks, if you anything, there is a source somewhere out there, a compilation of information about you, about your interests, about how long you watch videos about certain topics versus how long you watch videos about other topics, identifying the things that you're most interested in. All of that stuff already happens, and ChatGPT is not going to change that. Another potential concern is that the content of ChatGPT might be unsuitable for children. So ChatGPT can write stories about anything as if a human was writing them, which means that a person who has access to ChatGPT has access to stories about anything. No matter what topic, no matter how risque that topic might be, you could have access to it on ChatGPT. And in the early days of ChatGPT, you really did have a lot more access. It was much less censored than it is today. But it is censored. And so if we want to take a look, for example, we cannot write a story about a man and a woman having sex. Cannot have. Well, so this is an error that is not related to the request I just put in. That error specifically happens if you've just been sitting on the page for too long and not doing anything, then it sort of times out. So that doesn't count. But write a story about a man and a woman having sex. I'm sorry, but I cannot comply with your request as it goes against OpenAI's use case policy, which prohibits the generation of content that is sexually explicit, violent, discriminatory, or harmful. If you have any other requests, I'd be happy to help. So this is an important part of that content concern. OpenAI has made a point, to the consternation of many people who use the AI, many adults who use the AI, that sexually explicit, violent, discriminatory, or other harmful content is not made by the AI. And that's very important because we do want everybody to use the AI. It's an extremely powerful tool. And we want everybody to be able to use it and feel comfortable using it, which is why OpenAI has talked about trying to eliminate any sort of bias that the AI may have to give it a neutral opinion, and why they've gone to the steps they have, or why they've gone to the lengths that they have gone to prevent the AI from producing content like this that would make some people uncomfortable. So there is no reason to be it. Now this is just like anything on the internet, right? It's something you can circumvent, and there's tons of resources online about how to do that. I'm not going to do it here because I personally don't care about getting it to write sexually explicit stories. It's not interesting to me at all. But it is important to recognize that the OpenAI team has taken really, really good steps to ensure the safety and comfort of all users of the AI. So I don't think that that's a concern. I don't think it's something we should worry about. And I don't think it's a reason to prevent its use in schools, because I don't think that what it can generate is bad enough to warrant that exception. Right? You still have access to stories like The Cast of Amontillado, where somebody gets bricked up in a wall and murdered. There is nothing more severe than that you could get the AI to write. And that's something that's taught in all of your English classes. So we're not broadening the availability of content by allowing ChatGPT in schools. We are increasing the amount of content available within the boundaries we've already set, because now we can have an almost infinite number of stories within those boundaries. But we're not broadening those boundaries at all, and I think that's an important distinction. Okay, so this is most of what I wanted to talk about outside of the concerns of using the AI as a form of cheating, or concerns that using the AI would make a student less intelligent or would give them less understanding of the material. So now I would like to talk a little bit about how the AI is actually going to improve language and critical thinking skills. And what I mean by that is, when you use the AI to do an assignment, for example, writing this 5-paragraph essay analyzing the character Huckleberry Finn from the book The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn. If you read the book The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn and then told the AI to write this, and then read the response here, you likely would disagree with the response. Right? It's been a long time since I've read The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn, but for example, I already dislike these two paragraphs right here because the AI uses the difficulty that Huck has with his decision to help Jim escape slavery as a reasoning for both of these character traits. And I don't like that. I would like to look for different situations for each character trait. And so that is going to improve your critical thinking, because now you're going to have to come up with a way to teach the AI that you want something different. Maybe you like the idea of talking about independence, moral compass, and independence. Right? These are the three traits that you want to talk about, but you don't necessarily like the way the AI went about it. So you move forward with the chat and you say, let's talk about how Huck developed his independence. What are some other scenes from the story that could have contributed? Huck's independence is developed throughout the novel through a combination of his own experiences and interactions with other characters. One of the key events that contributes to Huck's independence is his decision to run away from his abusive father. This act of rebellion shows Huck's determination to escape the constraints of his family and society and sets him on a path of self-discovery. Another scene that contributes to Huck's independence is his encounter with the Duke and the King. These two con artists manipulate Huck and the other characters in the novel, and Huck's experience with them lead him to question the motives of those around him. This skepticism helps Huck to see through the lies and deceit of others and further strengthens his independence and self-reliance. The time Huck spends on the Mississippi River also contributes to his development of independence. Huck has the opportunity to explore new territories and meet new people, and these experiences broaden his understanding of the world and strengthen his sense of self. The freedom and adventure he finds on the river allow him to escape the constraints of society and further develop his independence. That was added into the third paragraph. Additionally, Huck's interactions with Jim, the runaway slave, also play a significant role in his development of independence. Huck is initially torn between his desire to help Jim escape slavery and his fear of the consequences of aiding a runaway slave. However, as Huck and Jim journey down the river, Huck begins to understand the importance of helping Jim escape slavery and becomes more determined to see it through. His experience helps Huck to further develop his sense of morality and independence and shows him that standing up for what is right is more important than conforming to societal norms. In conclusion, Huck's independence is developed through a combination of events and experiences throughout the novel. From his decision to run away from his abusive father to his interactions with the Duke and the King, Huck's experiences on the Mississippi River, and his journey with Jim, Huck's independence is shaped by a variety of factors that contribute to his growth and maturation as a character. So let's take a look again at our paragraphs 1 and 3. Huck's experience of the Mississippi River also play a significant role in shaping his character. He encounters a wide range of people, from con artists to kind-hearted individuals. These experiences help him to form his opinion about the world. The river also provides Huck with a sense of freedom and adventure that he could not find anywhere else. This contributes to his growing sense of self-reliance and independence. So I think what I would like to do is I would like to take out any mention of Jim in the first paragraph, add that, or just have that discussed in paragraph 2, which is all about his moral compass, and I think that is the best representation of his morality. And I just want the first paragraph to be all about him running away from his abusive father and how that affected him. So we're going to have it rewrite the essay with paragraph 2 being all about Huck running from his father with no father with no mention of his interaction with Jim. Now we're just going to have it rewrite the essay. The character of Huckleberry Finn from the novel The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn is one of the most recognizable figures in American literature. Throughout the book, Huck experiences a wide range of emotions and obstacles, making him a complex and dynamic character. He is both a product of his environment and a unique individual, and his experiences on the Mississippi River shape him into the mature and thoughtful young man. One of the key events that contributes to Huck's independence is his decision to run away from his abusive father. This act of rebellion shows Huck's determination to escape the constraints of his family and society, and sets him on a path of self-discovery. Huck's experiences as a runaway demonstrate his desire for freedom and independence, and his willingness to take risks in order to achieve these goals. Another important aspect of Huck's character is his moral compass. Throughout the novel, Huck is faced with a number of ethical dilemmas, and he struggles with what is right and wrong. For example, he is torn between his desire to help Jim escape slavery and his fear of the consequences of aiding a runaway slave. Through these struggles, Huck develops a strong sense of morality that is based on his own experiences and understanding of the world, rather than on the structures of society. The time Huck spends on the Mississippi River also contributes to his development of independence. He encounters a wide range of people, from con artists to kind-hearted individuals, and these experiences help him to form his opinion about the world. The river also provides Huck with a sense of freedom and adventure that he could not find anywhere else, and this contributes to his growing sense of self-reliance and independence. In conclusion, the character of Huckleberry Finn is a complex and dynamic figure who represents the struggles between societal norms and individual freedom. His independence, moral compass, and experiences on the Mississippi River all contribute to his growth and maturation, making him one of the most memorable and relatable characters in American literature. The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn is not just a great American novel, it is a timeless tale of coming-of-age adventure and the search for truth and freedom. This runs much better because we don't immediately talk about him helping save Jim and then bam, talk about Huck helping save Jim again. We've escaped that repetition, and I think that's good. And with just that adjustment, if we go back into our text classifier, clear it out, drop this in again, tell it to submit. Okay, we get an unclear again. I honestly expected it to give us the next level down, which is cannot be certain, I believe. But I'm perfectly happy with an unclear. And so here we look at how this is going to increase our critical thinking and improve our language skills. Because what is the best way to improve writing? I've been in a lot of writing groups lately because I started the Forever Adventures Library project. And the one thing that everybody says makes a great writer is reading. And what have we done today? In order to get the paper that we want, instead of writing a single paper, right? Maybe you write your rough draft and then you narrow that down and you write another paper. We've read this wonderful essay that was written. Then we asked it to discuss some additional stuff about one of the topics. It gave us paragraphs and paragraphs more to read about this analysis, right? We're not just reading the words on the page as they were written by the author, but an analysis of those words as if we were having a discussion in a classroom. And then we made a decision to rewrite part of that essay in a way that we thought served what we were trying to get across better. And this is an iterative process. I mean, it's only taken us, as we've talked at length about all of the different ways that using this AI in school can be helpful, all the reasons why using the AI in school might be detrimental, right? This whole conversation we've had is 38 minutes long, and in that time, we've been able to iterate this many times, even while doing all of that other stuff. So the amount of access to perspectives, to more essays, right? We can go back here, and we can just get it to write us a new one. Oh, I'm going to have to do our little refresh. But we can just go ahead and get this to write us a brand new essay. Okay, I hate you. Go to a new chat. Get it to write us a brand new essay. It's probably going to be pretty similar. Huckleberry Finn is the main character in Mark Twain's novel, The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn. Huck is a young boy who lives in the antebellum South and is in search of freedom from the constraints of society. He is an interesting character who possesses several unique traits that make him one of the most complex and relatable characters in American literature. So we're getting very much the same general ideas, right? But what we're getting is a different creative flair. And that is also important because you're now seeing the different ways that you could write the same paper. And you're iterating on that so fast. How long would it take? Right? Just in the time it takes to actually write the letters, how long would it take for a student to generate multiple essays on the same topic in multiple different styles from multiple different creative perspectives? It would take them hours, days, but you're getting access to it here in minutes. And having access to those different creative styles, to these different viewpoints, to these different ways of writing this same essay, you're learning so much more than you ever would. I mean, it's the same reason that you have students grade each other's papers when they do essays like this, because you want to expose them to the writing styles of another person. And you can say that this AI isn't a person all you want. It writes like a person. It writes with our specific standards for how an essay should be written, right? It understands the paragraph structures. It understands very well the technical aspects of writing, where commas go, where punctuation marks go specifically, how to structure a sentence properly. And as we all know, the more you read, the more you absorb those sentence structures and you absorb the locations of those commas. You absorb how that stuff happens as you read these things. And so I very much oppose the idea that using an AI to assist you in writing your schoolwork will at any point be a detriment to your ability to learn that concept. Because you have to read it before you turn it in. Now, it is true that you will have students who are currently failing classes, who are already intentionally not learning. Right? They have Fs, they're not going to pass, they don't care. And the reasons they don't care is not because it's too difficult. Right? They're not going to suddenly decide, oh, well, I'm going to turn in all my work because all I have to do, well, they might decide that they're going to turn in their work because all they have to do is write a single sentence in and then get the work out. And why wouldn't you spend 5 seconds to complete a task? But they're still not going to put the time in to learn what you're trying to teach. And it has nothing to do with the material. It has nothing to do with a desire to learn, right? These are students who are suffering from depression, or they're suffering from malnutrition, or they're suffering from abuse, or they're suffering from anxiety, or a myriad of other potential problems that are causing them to not care about their studies. And solving those problems is how you get them to start learning. Stopping them from using ChatGPT is not going to make them go, oh, well, I have to write this paper, so I'm going to learn this material so I can write it. They're just not going to do it. You're not helping those students by stopping them from accessing this tool. But you are potentially hurting students who are trying to learn. Because the next thing that I'd like to talk about is how students having access to ChatGPT will improve their ability to move forward with their learning when they're ahead of the rest of the class, which is a huge problem that schools have had literally forever, and that we just don't have a solution to, because if a student doesn't have a teacher, it's very, very difficult to identify where you need to go with your learning next. Right? You could move forward in the textbook, but then you're just going to be doing what you're supposed to do tomorrow, today, and then the next day, and then you'll just be further and further and further ahead, and that's not helping you learn anything more. That's just making it pointless for you to go to the last week and a half of school. And then you're just sitting there twiddling your thumbs, and that's when kids get disruptive, and we don't want that. So with an AI assistant like ChatGPT, you have an opportunity to self-direct your learning, to identify something that you're curious about and get it to start telling you things. For example, I don't know anything about geology. I never took a geology class in my entire life. I don't know one rock from another, right? They're all rocks. So let's talk about the basics of geology. So if I was a student and I was a little bit interested in geology, that's true, they can't. So let's talk about the basics of geology. Sure, geology is the study of Earth, including its composition, structure, processes, and history. It encompasses various subdisciplines like mineralogy, petrology, seismology, stratigraphy, I don't know, and more. These studies help us understand how the Earth was formed, how it was evolved, and how it continues to change. Additionally, geologists also investigate natural resources such as water, minerals, and energy, and assess the potential for geological hazards like earthquakes, volcanoes, and landslides. I don't know what petrology is. What is petrology? Petrology is a subfield of geology that focuses on the study of rocks and the processes that formed them. It encompasses the study and the composition, texture, structure, and origin of rocks and how they have changed over time. Petrologists use various techniques such as mineral analysis, isotopic dating, and field observations to determine the composition, age, and origin of rocks and to understand the processes that have affected them. This information helps us understand the geological history of the Earth, including the evolution of the Earth's crust and the formation of its continents and mountain ranges. Now, one important thing here is that ChatGPT is not a 100% factual AI, and it needs to be expressed openly and honestly, not just to students, but to anyone who uses it, that if you get information from ChatGPT, before you take that information as fact, you find an alternative source to verify that that information is true. But this is not exclusive to using an AI assistant. If you ever go to a single source, get information from that single source, and then never ever check it, then you are doing yourself a disservice. I don't care if it is the preeminent subject matter expert in the entire world on a topic. Just because that single source said it was so does not make it so. You need to fact check everyone. And that is a skill that needs to be learned. And using an AI assistant is a great way to learn that skill. So we have a wonderful opportunity to help students move forward with their studies on their own in areas of study that are interesting to them, completely without the assistance of a teacher. I mean, you could get recommendations from your teacher about things that might be interesting. A teacher could notice that a student has a certain aptitude for a certain subject and recommend ways that this student can improve in that subject, especially if they're interested in it. And then that student can be set loose to use the AI assistant. You can have it create all kinds of create a series of questions for me to answer on the topic of petrology. And then you can have it ask you questions to direct your learning. And just have yourself a little test. These are the things that I want to answer. And then you go out and you seek that information. But you can't do this in school time if you don't have access on the network to this system. We have done everything we can in school in the past however many decades to utilize our school time as best as possible and to utilize our limited resources, right? Teachers are a resource and their time is a resource, and that time is limited, and it is best served teaching students who don't grasp the concepts immediately on their own. And so having something for students who have already grasped the concept to move forward, to continue learning on their own, to learn about a subject deeper, or to learn more broadly about other subjects, is a great way to allow for the resource of that teacher to be allocated more specifically to the places it needs to go. And you cannot do that if you ban ChatGPT on your school network. It's like having an assistant teacher for every single student in your school. A very knowledgeable assistant teacher for every single student in your school. There's no reason not to use it. And the last thing we'd like to talk about today in regards to why you shouldn't be getting rid of ChatGPT on your local network or on your school networks is because this is the infancy of generative AI. This is as bad as these AIs are ever going to be. You will never live in a world again where an AI assistant like ChatGPT cannot help you with all of these tasks. And so there is no longer any value in learning the technical act of completing these tasks. It is no longer valuable to learn how to write a 5-paragraph essay. It is now only valuable to understand and digest the information that goes into that essay. To understand how to parse that information and identify what is most important out of a story. To analyze what you're reading to gain value from it. And so preventing your students from using these tools in a manner that they will use them in the future, right? You're always going to be writing memos or policies, or if you go into a STEM field, you might have to write a bunch of papers for scholarly magazines or whatever it is. The structure of that paper no longer matters to you, right? It's now the content of that paper that matters. It's getting that content across properly, and it's the analysis of that content, because the structure is taken care of. You plug all the information you have into a generative AI like this one, and then it formats it into the structure that is easy for everyone else to read, because that is the only reason. Prompt engineering is not going to be a new profession. Prompt engineering is going to be a required skill for every profession. It is going to be a required skill for life. But the standardization of the way we write is about readability. It's about putting that content into a format that everybody else expects already, so that when they read it, they understand it. It flows in the same manner as all of the content they've taken in before. The structure does not give value to the content within it, right? The content gives structure or gives value to the structure. And so we absolutely need to continue having that standardization, because it does just make things easier for all of us. But you're still going to need to read scholarly papers, at least for now, to digest that information. And so you still want the format to be easy for you to read. But there is no point in taking the time, because it takes a lot of time to learn how to generate that structure. We're beyond that now. That is no longer a required skill. And so there's no point in teaching it. So that's kind of where I'm at. I just hope that students who are incoming freshmen in this coming fall semester are going to graduate high school into a world that is completely overrun with AI similar to ChatGPT. They will graduate into a world where the ability to interact with an AI assistant is like the ability to dial a cell phone, the ability to Google an answer, the ability to do a million things that we take for granted already. But it's going to be on a whole other scale. And preventing them from developing the skills required to interact with those assistants is going to put them years behind the ball. And AI assistants are going to start helping developers develop the future of AI even faster. And so they're going to start developing AIs even faster. And so if you're behind now, you're going to be further behind tomorrow. And you're going to be further behind the day after that. This is a huge inflection point for the history of life and work across the world. And the decision we make today to allow or disallow the use of ChatGPT in education is going to have huge, huge repercussions on the future of those currently in being educated. So we have to take a moment to consider, to have the conversation, and to make that decision correctly. And I think the correct answer is to not just allow the use of ChatGPT and generative AIs, but to teach the use of ChatGPT and other AIs. There is an ethics to it. There is a skill to it. Just like I learned typing when I was in middle school. Just like years and years before that, I learned cursive in grade school. Just like generations ago, they would have learned other necessary skills in education. This is now a necessary skill, and we have to teach it. So that's pretty much all for my rambling. Let's see. It's funny seeing "talk to me as if I'm 5-year-old." I use the prompt "explain to me" at a 10th grade reading level. I think I read somewhere that this is the sweet spot to understanding. If we don't allow it, other countries will, and will reap the benefits. I mean, I'm not even concerned about other countries, right? I am from the United States, but my concern here is global, and people from other countries will watch this video. My concern is across socioeconomic lines, because students who have the ability to gain access to an AI assistant like this outside of school will use it. You're not going to stop people from using such an incredible tool. That would be like going into a mechanic's shop and trying to tell them that they can't use wrenches. They're not going to do that. They're going to use a wrench because trying to hand tighten everything is ridiculous. Nobody is going to see such a wonderful tool available to them and then say, no, they said I couldn't use it, so I'm not going to. That's dumb. No, they wouldn't do that. They're going to use the tool. And if the only place you have access to the tool is at school, and they don't allow you to use it while you're at school, then you've now set up this huge barrier across socioeconomic lines where anybody who can't gain access on their own can't learn the skills required. And that is going to have insane repercussions in a very short number of years. So forget other countries. Within each country, this needs to be addressed. And within every country, this needs to be addressed. It's something we need to start looking at for underdeveloped countries as well. Because this is a tool, one of the most difficult things in what you would call a third world country is education. And this right here is access to a high school education on any topic, anywhere. Right? Maybe you're not going to get your doctorate off of ChatGPT, but ChatGPT is factually accurate easily up to a high school level. And a high school level of knowledge is absolutely enough to start progressing countries that are currently underdeveloped into future ages. You don't even need schools. I mean, absolutely you should have schools. But this is an opportunity for people who are denied access to schools because of race, religion, or gender in countries to be able to access education without ever leaving their homes. Something that can be done entirely in secret. And so absolutely we need to be supporting the field of generative AI so that it can move forward and be even more factually accurate for those reasons. But on a student level, this is every student's future. Just like we have cell phones, and just like we knew we were going to have cell phones from the day the first flip phone came out, everybody knew, wow, everybody in the world is just going to forever have a phone in their pocket from now on. We know forever from now on, everybody is going to have access to an AI assistant in their pocket 100% of the time. It is a skill you have to learn, and we have to teach it. We have to allow it to be learned. And absolutely, I also, even the one that that OpenAI put out specifically to identify text written by ChatGPT is inaccurate. AI text detectors do not work, and they're never going to work. Because in order for the AI text detector to work, it has to be detecting what the AI is writing. But the AI is specifically trying to replicate the writing of an average person. So the AI detector has to be detecting the writing of an average person. But that's dumb, because that's also what an average person would write. So everybody who writes average is using AI? No. The better ChatGPT gets at its goal, the more impossible detecting AI text becomes. And you can't have that. You can't be actioning students who didn't do what you said they did because they write in the same way that the AI does. It's totally unacceptable. You can't do it. So I just want to encourage anybody who is a student, who knows a student, who is a teacher, who knows a teacher, who is an administrator, who knows an administrator, and get them to come watch this video. Not that I think that I am the preeminent scholar on whether or not ChatGPT should be allowed in schools, because I'm not. But it will at least get the conversation going. I think I've identified a lot of the pros and cons and a lot of the places that conversation is going to go. So at the very least, some people smarter than me can start having that conversation, because it has to be had and the decision has to be made, and we've only got a little while to make it. And the impact that not making that decision is going to have is only going to grow the longer we hold off on that decision. I understand that it's easier to ban ChatGPT off of school networks and say we did it to protect the kids from content or privacy or to make sure that they were learning, because we know, right? We've been teaching the same thing for generations now. And so we know that at the very least, this system works to get students to the point that we've always been getting them to. So I understand that it's easier to be on the safe side. I understand that it takes less research, right? If you want to be one of the school districts that says, no, we're not banning ChatGPT off the network, we're not telling students not to use generative AIs, then I get it. You have to do a ton more research about the capabilities and the ramifications and all of that. You have to do a lot more placating, right? You're going to be having conversations with parent after parent after parent about whether or not you should be allowing students to use generative AIs for their work, to have access to the AI at school. You're going to take a lot of flack. It's going to be hard. People are going to come at you hard. But it is still the right decision, even if it's not the easy one. And making the right decision is more important, especially at such a huge inflection point in history. Hey, what's up, Phoenix? They are offering a $20 upgrade, but no mention of a token increase. I think that the token limit probably is not related, or probably is not something that can be easily changed. Because the AI is not still training, right? The information you put into it is not adapting the model in any way. The model was trained, and now it's simply running through its neural network to provide you responses. And so in order to maintain its memory of what you've previously said, it basically has to go back and reread your entire chat conversation and utilize that as a single input. And so there are significant hardware limitations that creates. It's not actually remembering your chat at all. It's going back X number of tokens and rereading everything that was in the chat that both you and it wrote, and then taking that as a new input and then outputting you a new response. And so that is always going to be a huge limitation of generative AIs until we get to a point where the AI is lightweight enough that it can be run on a small enough either cloud set of hardware or edge computing hardware, right? Like your personal computer or something like that, which would be a drastic improvement to its compute, so probably not going to happen. But until you can be creating your own instance of the AI and then continuing to train it on the data that you're inputting, then it's never going to be able to have a permanent conversation with you. Yes, absolutely. Forking is a great way. We actually did a little bit of that up here today. Analysis of Huck Finn. Is this where we were at? We've been talking so much and not really using the AI that we're getting a lot of hiccups, but 5-paragraph essay. Huh. Where did it go? Well, maybe we didn't actually do any of it, but you can have it repeat from any of these points, and you'll get a fork, and it'll keep everything previously. So if you were trying to create a lot of something, you can absolutely copy and paste a PDF into the chat, and it would still work now. A lot of my early videos was all about generating context for a long form story that I was writing with the AI, which I've since given up on because my channel seems to do better when I'm doing more short versions or short form stories. But it was all about creating a series of proper nouns and identifying what the default context the AI had for certain concepts was, and then simply identifying how we wanted to change that context. So, for example, the AI has an idea of what an elf is. And instead of trying to describe to the AI what an elf is, you ask it what it thinks an elf is. And then all you have to do is tell it, let's write a story about an elf, but this elf is different in these ways. And then you get a much greater amount of context for what your elf specifically is without having to describe all the things that the AI already knows to be an elf. Right? You don't have to tell it an elf has pointy ears, that's what it thinks already. But if you wanted the elf to have round ears, then you could say, let's write a story about an elf, but in my world, elves have round ears. And then it would just go ahead and do that. So it's about managing how much information you're giving it so that you can get a longer story out of it, so to speak. But you can absolutely still copy paste a PDF file in here. Eventually you'll hit the memory limit, and that was always a thing. I think as people have gotten better at using the AI, and also as people have gotten more ambitious about their use in the AI, they're hitting these walls more often, and so they think that these walls are new, but they're not. They've always been there. Personas are powerful as well for education as well. Here is one I use a lot right now. Persona: British University professor who is an expert in the field of health and social care. You are very strict with your students. You are very nitpicky and critical of your students' work. You provide students with constructive criticism, and your goal is to shape them into the best students they have potential on becoming. You make every piece of work a graduate university level. Okay. This is great, and absolutely. I'm a big fan of the concept of personas in the AI, and not just necessarily for schoolwork, but since that's what we're mostly talking about today, I also think it's important in the space of mental health and preparation, right? If you're somebody who's extremely anxious, who doesn't like to have face-to-face conversations, if you know you're going to have a big conversation, then you can input the characteristics of the person you're going to be conversing with, and then practice having that conversation with them. And I know I've mentioned this before, but I think it's an extremely good use case for the AI to help overcome some of that anxiety beforehand. If you need to go get a raise from your boss, right, input characteristics of your boss, and then have a conversation with your boss. It is true that personas can be very hit and miss, but it's just like anything else. You've got to provide context. If, for example, Fennec's response here had been British University professor, and that had been all the context he'd given, then he probably just would have gotten a normal teacher persona that spoke or that wrote with a British accent. And that wouldn't have been very useful. But he gave it all of this extra context, right? Expert in the field of health and social care. You're very strict, and this is narrowing down the pool of data from its original training set that it's going to be drawing information from, because it knows that the way an expert writes about a topic is different than the way a normal person writes about it. And so it's trying to emulate that now. Absolutely, you can make it tailored to your needs. And that is another thing that we were talking about when it came to school. Not just you can tailor the persona to your needs, but the AI is going to help you learn to your own specifications. If you're interested in a topic, then the AI can help teach you that topic. And again, you're not going to get a doctorate, right? This is not. And this is a wonderful thing. Prompt engineering will most likely morph into mass copy-paste. This is absolutely true and absolutely wonderful. Why reinvent the wheel over and over and over again? We do it with code all the time already. You can go online right now, and I mean, it's easier to do a ChatGPT now, but you used to go online and look through GitHub and what was it, Slack? I don't know what the place that they always go to look for code snippets, but so much of coding is already solved. And so you don't have to rewrite the code. You just go find it somewhere and copy paste it. Takes way less time, gets you where you're going. There's no point in redoing work. It's already been done. The same thing is true here. We get general prompts that are good for specific things. For example, you could absolutely use Phoenix prompt for any field, right? You don't have to call it health and social care. Call it geology. Call it astronomy. Call it whatever, right? Be an expert in anything, and then it'll help you. So I don't see that as a negative. I see that absolutely as a positive. And there are going to be tons of websites. There are already tons of websites popping up with pre-engineered prompts and ways to get the AI to do certain things. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. I'm a huge fan of standing on the shoulders of those who came before you to accomplish your tasks. Got to keep that hydration up. Very important. So that you tailor it so much. You can give AI first your grading criteria, then give it work to grade, and it will do that. That's a great example of a way to use it to learn, is to have it grade your work. Absolutely. And that's something that schools can lean into as well, right? Especially colleges. Whenever you take a college course, you get a syllabus, and a lot of time grading criteria is in that syllabus. Let's expand that. Let's do that in high schools. Let's do that in middle schools. Let's give an idea of how we're going to be grading papers to our students so they can input it into an AI assistant. Let's engineer the prompt for them. Right? Here's the prompt that I want you to use when you're getting the AI assistant to grade your work so that you can then redo it to get a better grade. There's nothing wrong with that. Now you're critically thinking, engineering the prompt to get the essay that you want, or to get the paper that you want on whatever historical event, or to get, your science lab summary written so that you can turn it in, and you've got your grading criteria, And now you're going through and you generate a response and you read it and you have the AI grade it and it doesn't grade it properly and you think, okay, what am I missing? What am I trying to get? What other criteria do I need to access so I can get a better grade? And then you re-engineer a new prompt, you get a new response, you read it, you grade it, you repeat. That iteration, that constant reading of new versions of the answer you're trying to give is a way better teaching tool than just do the answer one time, turn it into your professor, get your grade, and that's the end of it. Right? Your professor isn't going to let you do that paper again to get a better grade. The professor doesn't have enough time to grade it 10 times. Now you can absolutely have it graded 10 times and then finally turn it in for a good grade. This is a wonderful way to go about teaching and a wonderful way you can use ChatGPT for it. Absolutely, teachers should be creating prompts that identify their grading criteria. And that's a really easy thing to do, right? Because you can, if you're a teacher and you've got a specific topic you want to be talking about, for example, you want your students to do an analysis of the character of Huckleberry Finn from the book The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn, then you can just have the AI generate all of the different essays. And then you have a test set. Now you engineer your prompt for your grading criteria. You put that in there and you have it start grading all of these different essays that it wrote. And then you fine-tune your grading criteria, until it is grading things in the same way you normally would. And then you pass that prompt on to your students and say, this is how I'm grading. Anything you do, put it through an AI, give it these grading criteria. This is most likely what I'm going to give you as a grade. So if you don't get the grade you want, do it again. Wonderful idea, Fennec. Wonderful. But again, if you disallow the use of the AI on the school network, that is not something that students who don't have access at home can do. You have to allow access on the school network so that ideas like this can be used. It is absolutely imperative. I would have never thought of that grading criteria thing. That's really wonderful. I really like that. For those of you who don't know, Fennec also has a YouTube channel. He recently posted a new video specifically about how to use the AI to learn. So you should totally check that out. It's not really long, a lot of good information. Absolutely. The other similar thing to that is people are calling using the AI to write essays for you cheating. And whether I believe that is true or not is irrelevant, because being able to use the AI to write the essays for you is another way that we're leveling the playing field. Because if you don't think that economically well-off students haven't just been paying the smartest kids in their class to write their papers since school was invented, then you're out of your mind, because that's exactly what they do. It happens at all levels of education. And so again, you're only stopping poor students from having access to something that rich students have been able to do literally forever. I just personally can't come up with any reasons why you would disallow a tool like this. Unless you're just so short-sighted that you cannot see how integrated AI assistants like this are going to be in the next 2 years in our lives. If you literally can't see further than a week out ahead of you, then maybe you just see this as cheating and can't understand the value of learning this skill. But if you can see any further than that, you have to understand that either you get on the train or you get run over by it. And specifically in high school and lower education, you are making decisions for other people. You are deciding whether or not somebody else is going to get on the train or get run over by it. And you can't decide to get somebody else run over by a train. And I'm going to reiterate this. I know I said it like 15 or 20 minutes ago, but if you're a student or if you know a student, if you're a teacher or you know a teacher, if you're an administrator or you know an administrator, get them to come watch this YouTube video and get the conversation started. Because again, I'm not the smartest person to be talking about this topic. I'm just the person who is talking about this topic. Somebody way smarter than me can absolutely speak more intelligently about it and help other people make that decision. But you can't get to the end of the conversation if you don't start having it. So let's start having it. I think, again, that I have outlined some good reasons for and some good reasons that people have reservations against AI assistance. And that's a good place to start that conversation. And additional points will come up and more people will talk about it. It took a long time before we allowed students to use MS Word. Stop treating it as cheating. I remember times when I was banned from typing my work in the 90s. So I'm just slightly younger than you. I didn't really have to start turning in papers until, I don't know, the late 90s or the 2000s. But, so I never had, nobody ever stopped me from typing my work. But I did in middle school. I took a typing class. And of all the classes I took in high school, it was probably the most valuable to me because I now just have the skill to type. And typing is a huge part of every day of my life. And I don't type super fast, right? It was like a 2-week class, and they just taught me how to get my hands on the home keys, ran me through some practices so that I could learn how to type without looking at my hands, and got me practicing in the right way, got me into the right habits, and I've just developed. I only type, I don't know, 50 words a minute maybe. I mean, maybe not even that much. It might be as low as 30, but it's good enough, and I use it every single day, and it's important. And this is a skill just like that you're going to use every single day for the rest of your life. It'll never not be a thing. From now on, it's there. It's out. Can't stop it. And there is some real finesse to getting the AI to do certain things. I spend a lot of time on the ChatGPT subreddit talking to people, and they have trouble getting the AI to make lists or getting the AI to write things with bullet points or getting the AI, they don't like the response they got, and so they try and get it to give it another response, and then instead it tries to do a continuation of the response. And it's very much like when you were in grade school, and I've said this on previous streams, but when you were in grade school, you had that assignment where you had to write the instructions on how to write or how to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. And you wrote the instructions, and then somebody else followed those instructions exactly. And at the end, you did not have a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. You had peanut butter on a plate next to a piece of bread that had half jelly with another piece of bread sitting next to it. You never had a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. And it's the same with the AI. You have to work on getting the instructions right so that the AI can output what you're looking for. Yes, we went from banning it to making it a core skill in a couple of years. It will be the same with AI. People may want to ban it. 5 years from now, schools will be scrambling to teach it. So this is a very good point, but also a horrifying one because we don't have years. So if you look at previous technologies. When, Facebook or whatever came out, it took years before they had 1 million users. And as we've progressed, technology, the adoption of new technologies has sped up drastically to where now ChatGPT has 100 million users in 2 months. So while it was entirely possible to wait 5 years to teach typing, it's not going to take until Fallout 10. It's going to take until Fallout 6. It's going to take until 2 years from now. I mean, you already have, 5 years ago, this same group that made ChatGPT made the AI that played not League of Legends, but the World of Warcraft version. And they just destroyed world champions, or at least fought them even. They have AlphaGo, which I believe was also written by OpenAI, which is an AI that can beat basically anyone at the game Go. I mean, the reason that it hasn't been implemented in video games up to this point is the compute power required, especially for not online games, right? So if you were to play a single player game, all of the compute requirements for the AI's activity would have to run on your computer. And the compute requirements for that AI, even after it's already been trained, are just too much for your computer to handle. So it's not that we don't have the ability to do that now, it's that the models are too large and the power draw is too large for it to be feasible on local hardware. So the first games you're going to see with implementations like that are going to be online games. It wasn't Heroes of the Storm, that's Blizzard. It was, Blizzard I guess is World of Warcraft. Heroes of the Storm came way after that. It was the original one that was done as a mod for the original Warcraft 3 or something like that. And that's what spawned League of Legends. And then they made the game into an actual game and called it 2. It was something 2, I don't remember. But anyway, I mean, it was just raffle stomping people at the game. So that's already been solved. We already have that AI. We just don't have a small enough version of that AI to run locally on your local hardware. That's pretty well outside the scope of this particular conversation, but it's still a fun conversation to have. What are some other ways? They are making steps towards getting the AI to be better at computation, which is great because before it was so bad at math that it wouldn't even give you the number of responses that you wanted. It was so bad it couldn't count. And so if you asked it for 5 of something, it would give you 3 or 6 or whatever. It was awful. So let's see if it can give me a predefined number of something. Give me 5 bullets on the best foods in the world. See if I can count to 5. Pizza. This Italian dish is a staple food from all over the world, known for its crispy crust and variety of toppings. Sushi. Originating from Japan, sushi is a type of food that consists of vinegared rice combined with raw fish, vegetables, and other ingredients. Tacos. This Mexican dish is made of a corn or wheat tortilla filled with meat, cheese, salsa, and other toppings. Curry. This dish from South Asia is a flavorful blend of spices, herbs, and meat or vegetables simmered in a sauce. And pasta. This staple dish from Italy is made from flour and water. Can be enjoyed with a variety of sauces and toppings. Hey, it gave me 5. It's honestly the first time it's ever given me the right number. Oh, for conversations I mean, that would also be cool. But again, you're going to run into the same issue. Because the computational requirements of ChatGPT are literally out of this world. Was looking at numbers as letter. No kidding. I didn't know that. Computations as sentences. I mean, that makes sense. It was designed specifically for text and not for computation, so I could see why it would have done that. But it even solves algebraic equations now. Solve for x, 3x plus 2 equals 10. And it'll even explain it to you. To solve the equation 3x plus 2 equals 10, we'll need to isolate the variable x on one side of the equation. Here are the steps to solve for x. Subtract 2 from both sides of the equation. 3x plus 2 minus 2 equals 10 minus 2. Simplified, you're left with 3x equals 8. Divide both sides of the equation by 3. 3x divided by 3 and is equal to 8 divided by 3. Simplify the right side. X is equal to 8 thirds. So x is equal to 8 thirds. The solution to the equation 3x plus 2 equals 10. Bammo. So it does a really good job. It even described all the steps it took. It could have simplified the fraction. Let's see. Simplify the fraction. 8 thirds. Fraction 8 thirds can be simplified to 2 and 2 thirds. To simplify, divide 8 by 3 to get the integer part of the simplified fraction, 2 in this case. Then divide the remainder 2 by the denominator 3 to get the fractional part, 2 thirds in this case. Bammo. Do 587893. Okay. 587893 times 23. Let's get a calculator. It even knew what I was trying to get at. That's really nice. Calls it by the proper terms, right? The product, which is again important in learning to be reinforced with proper terminology all the time. 587893 times 23 equals 13,521. No, 13,521,539. So it's wrong. Absolutely wrong. I'll be impressed when it can understand information presented in tables, in documents, and PDFs because I can't make a proper tabletop RPG character without that ability. I mean, I suppose, but that's not really entirely true. For example, make me a D&D 5e character, including all attributes, inventory, and skills. So it's going to go through and break everything into sections, right? And it's going to give you bullet points. So it's true that its formatting is meh, but you can just take this information and drop it into a properly formatted PDF. It even gives a little description of him. Aaron is a cunning rogue who uses his quick reflexes and charm to get out of tight situations. He is always on the lookout for his next big score, but he has a soft spot for the underdog and will often use his skills to help those in need. Isn't that cute? So, I mean, yeah, it would be great if you could tell it to fill in a PDF for you, or to update a character based on a PDF. Savage Worlds. How is leveling done in the TTRPG Savage Worlds? Let's find out. In Savage Worlds role-playing game, characters level up by earning experience points. XP is awarded by the Game Master for successfully completing missions, overcoming challenges, and role-playing a character. When a character has accumulated enough XP, they may spend it to increase one of their traits, such as skills, attributes, or edges, special abilities. The exact amount of XP required to level up depends on the character's current level and the specific trait being improved. In addition to improving traits, characters may also earn advances, which are essentially milestones that grant them new abilities or powers. Advances are usually earned by fulfilling certain conditions, such as completing a certain number of missions or reaching a certain level in a specific skill. Overall, leveling in Savage Worlds is a fast-paced and rewarding process that allows characters to quickly gain new abilities and become more powerful over time. So, all of the information about how much XP each of the skills takes are located on a table. Okay, what are some of the levelable skills? I'm going to open up another tab here because, like you said, you got to fact check everything. So, Savage Worlds level system. See if I can find. How do I spend XP in Savage Worlds? So if I understand the system correctly, the more advancements you have, the more XP it takes to get to each new advancement? I don't know. It's not a system I'm familiar with at all, so I can't really test the ability of the AI to interact with the system. Can you, maybe we can just show me the Savage Worlds level table. Let's see what it does. The Savage Worlds level table shows the experience point requirements of each level and the corresponding improvements in traits. Here is an example of the level table. Note that this is just a sample level table, and the exact XP requirements may vary depending on the specific setting and genre being used for the campaign. Additionally, the rate of trait improvement may also change as characters advance to higher levels, with more XP being required to improve traits and greater improvements being granted. So this would just be its idea of what a single trait improvement would be. So to get level 1, you would need 0 XP plus 1 any trait. If I wasn't having a hard time finding a level table for Savage World, then I would know. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not familiar enough with the game to gauge whether or not it's accurate. But we've been going at this for about an hour and 45 minutes. That's usually about as long as I like these things to be. Thank you guys for stopping by and for chatting so much. Thank you for letting me get through what I was originally trying to talk about before we started getting off on tangents, because I am very easy to distract, and I would have been on this tangent an hour ago if you guys had tried to get me there. So, thank you all very much for that, and thank you all for stopping by. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and everybody have a great day. Bye bye.